Would you like to be somebody who understands why modern people cannot see God? Then listen to this entire video where I explain the development of modern societies with religion and why we cannot seem to feel or see God nowadays. Okay, before we get into this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to learn more about self-development, dating, and how to reduce suffering in life. Let's get into it. Okay, so God is dead is a famous quote by the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. What he was referring to was the detachment of society from believing in Christianity specifically and religion and God in general. And that was, I believe, at the end of the 1800s. And what Nietzsche was trying to exemplify was that the society had decided to debunk God and kill God because, well, you could not prove God's existence, and societies had become arrogant into think that, well, God doesn't exist, let's say, because you cannot truthfully, scientifically prove that he's there, and because societies had built this value of science and had prioritized science, and because you can't prove religion or, let's say, dogmatic statements, axioms of Christianity to be true, then they assumed they were false and hence killed God. Now, of course, one can understand, especially nowadays, why people are not really religious, because a lot of, let's say, Christianity might constitute some dogma, which is, well, axioms or beliefs that are not really based on any scientific evidence. And they might seem sort of fundamentalist and might be too radical for some people. And nowadays, science has become more prominent and more valued, let's say, because we're trying to value what is true and what we can prove and what the things we can find evidence for, and that gives us like a foundation to stand on. And because God cannot be proven, we've left God with no gender pronoun, we've left God behind. And today we have science, and I would say consumerism and materialism, which has substituted the religious belief system. So now we occupy ourselves with materialistic concerns. Sorry. However, there is still a need for humans to find meaning in life and to find something spiritual, because we have like a spiritual aspect to our nature. And I think Western societies nowadays are spiritually poor, and because spirituality, I think, is a part of our inherent nature, and because that side is neglected, pathologies arise in our psyche. So now, of course, the question arises, why cannot humans see God nowadays? Now, I'm not referring to all humans, but let's say a lot of Western individuals. Why can't they see God? Now, when I'm referring to God, I am referring to a underlying structure that seems to govern the world, and a structure that seems to sort of set rules and to judge people on how well they follow these rules or go against them. And if you follow these rules, you seem to benefit. Let's say if you're very generous, if you're altruistic, if you're humble, if you're confident, you seem to benefit in life. However, if you are resentful, if you are violent, if you are dishonest, if you lie, you seem to suffer more. So there seems to be this sort of network, or this law that seems to underlie our existence and seems to guide us and judge us based on how well we behave. And I would consider that to be God, let's say. And also there is a need for spirituality, which I think is connected to God, in that humans need to, something's telling me it's connected to meaning, and it's like it's what you should be aiming for in life, and it is beyond what you can physically explain. It's like a reaction in your brain. Like when you find meaning, you really feel it, and it's a profound feeling, and maybe that is also what God is. It's a feeling. When you feel it, it's what you should be feeling, or it's that aiming for that feeling is what you should be aiming for in life. It's just your soul is like singing, and it's really profound. Okay, so the argument I'm proposing is that modern day humans cannot see God. And the reason they can't see it is because they are dumbed down to only believe and trust or that which they can touch and that which they can see. Anything beyond the physical and your senses, your six senses, I believe, anything beyond that is not real or isn't there. And because God does not really, let's say, typically tap into your touch or your smell or your sight, I think, maybe it can, but therefore it's not there and it doesn't exist, and God cannot be seen. Okay, now let me give evidence as to why modern people can't see God, or at least some sort of argumentation. When discussing God or religion, people nowadays shy away. If you're at a social gathering and you start asking people about God, about religion, they tend to you can see they kind of shut down in their brain. They shut down in that they judge you and they box you in as an outsider or a weird person, like somebody who you wouldn't want to spend your free time with because they are weird. They're an outlier. That's what they are. They're probably not well socially integrated. There's something strange about them. And I talked to somebody today, and they said that when discussing casual sex, and this person is against casual sex, like me, but whenever he says, when he's discussing it with people, and then whenever he says, I'm Christian, then they just box the person in and say, well, okay, you don't believe in casual sex because you're Christian and you're like that, and it's just judge. It's judged into a box without really trying to understand that person or what God is. Yes. And when talking to people about God or spirituality, their ability to sort of comprehend what is being discussed, this sort of profound feeling or this feeling of meaning, is so far gone, so far sort of like drowned and in water and just blunted and like dumbed down, that it's not that they can't really understand what you're talking about. Like it's so suppressed, let's say, that people just don't grip what you're saying. And the evidence that I would say something does exist, at least I've kind of experienced it myself, I think, I'm not sure, but is when you feel meaning, you feel like your existence has come to the point of where it is supposed to be. It has reached a feeling that is most valuable amongst all feelings. And it's a feeling that is beyond really what I can seem to explain. It is beyond the normal, and maybe I can't explain it because I don't have the infrastructure and the knowledge to really explain it, because nobody's really discussed what I have felt like with me in person, and I can't really formulate it. But it is like a feeling of your soul is where it's supposed to be, and it's usually not there, but it gets a glimpse of meaning. And maybe this is kind of it's kind of the thing that this underlying structure is trying to guide you towards. And if you follow by these steps, these guidelines, these rules, you get closer to this valuable thing. And I think that is meaning, kind of, maybe. However, I usually have these feelings alone. And when I come in touch with social situations and other human beings, somehow this feeling dies. It's like it suddenly collapses. It suddenly, this valve of meaning suddenly closes. And it's like, I think it closes because social situations give no place. They offer no place for this meaning to be discussed and to be trying to be communicated. It's like this feeling of a profound meaning does not belong or cannot live, cannot exist in social situations. It's like it's because it is not welcomed, let's say. It is shut down. And I think this is why people cannot see God, is because, first of all, they don't know what it is. It hasn't been explained to them in a way that they comprehend in their language. And also, social situations do not encourage to discuss these things, or even you don't necessarily have to have felt it, but just to be open and discuss it. There's no really room for it. So, and we're so used to debunking spirituality and God that this internal button flips in social situations, that as soon as spirituality and God comes up, you flick something inside of you, flicks a switches, and you collapse the discussion, you close it down because it's deemed as pseudoscience or bullshit, you know. So in people's sort of spiritual antenna or sense making of spirituality is so blunted and premature because it hasn't been utilized, practiced, or tapped into their entire lives. And people essentially don't know that it even exists, let alone how to listen to this sort of instinct within themselves. And that's why they can't see God, because as soon as maybe God does arise, they don't notice it, first of all, and they don't nurture it. They don't nurture this sense, this antenna. And with the antenna, I mean this ability to decipher these profound feelings, or these feelings of intensity. And perhaps, you know, surrounding yourself with certain people might prevent you from being spiritual and finding meaning in life, because they don't see God. So what expects you to think you will see God? And, you know, there's this, I think you adopt the lens of the people around you. Like, there's this concept that, you know, you're the average of the 5 people you spend most time with, and maybe to a degree there's something in that might be right. And, you know, if you're hanging out with 5 people who offer no room for spirituality and trying to figure out meaning in life, then you probably won't strive for it either. And you know how I made a recent video on how the people you spend time with and people around you, they keep you sane. You know, they keep you socially in check, so you know how to behave in social situations that makes other people want to spend time with you and think you're fun, and makes you be invited into gatherings. You know, they keep you in check because, you know, you're an individual, you're very idiosyncratic, and you can think of really weird things, and these people will tell you that your jokes aren't funny, and, you know, you need to keep yourself in check. But what if these people are spiritually ill and they're keeping you in check with this dumbed down perspective on life? And there's a very nice quote from, I really don't know, I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong, but Jiddu Krishnamurti. He says, quote, "It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society." Now, let me say it again. It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. So just because you fit into a society with social people doesn't mean you're healthy, because if the society is sick and ill, then you're also sick. So it is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. So what if the people around you are actually so spiritually deprived and spiritually poor, and they're let's say grooming you unintentionally into becoming like that also, or being like that? So what kind of a solution is there to trying to see God, or trying to create sense making for meaning in life? Maybe you can look for different people. Maybe that is, you know, that's a good thing to broaden your social horizon, because there are a lot of people actually who are into spirituality, are into trying to figure out life and understand the spiritual aspect of humanity, of human nature. And this is obviously quite painful if this entails having to let go of family, if family are dragging you down like crabs in a bucket. That's awfully painful, and I can't fully understand what that feels like because I don't necessarily have that entirely, but I can imagine it's very, very painful. Yeah, but I think it's important to find people who can encourage your spiritual growth. And when I talk about spirituality, I don't mean like, sit on the floor, start meditating and start levitating 3 feet above the ground and like with this halo above your head or this beam of light shining down on you. No, I mean like spirituality, I think is somehow like you start to see life through lenses of meaning. You start to understand life as if things make sense. And almost it feels like that is true, that these things do make sense, and there is some truth, and there is God, kind of like there's some structure that governs things, and it's not that things do mean things. Nihilism is not justified here. Anyway, as you can probably tell, my ideas are quite sort of confusing and not really clearly formulated because I really don't know how to formulate these things fully myself yet, but I'm in the process of doing it. So in conclusion, modern day people cannot see God because their ability or their spiritual sense making is so dumbed down because, first of all, they've never been taught how to tap into it. The people around them don't really encourage discussing spirituality or trying to go on spiritual endeavors, and the discussion of God is shut down as sort of as rubbish or bull and just a load of dogmatic brainwashing, let's say, something like that. And therefore it is not encouraged. Trying to develop your spirituality isn't really encouraged, and therefore humans really can't see God because Carl Jung had a quote. He says, modern people cannot see God because they don't look low enough. They can't look low enough. And I think that means like they can't really see. When low enough, you would look like this, you'd look down, and what you'd see is yourself, essentially. And I think what it means is, one interpretation might be that you don't see the nature of yourself. You can't even see the truth of yourself, that you have a desire for spirituality, really. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to learn more about self-development, dating, and how to reduce suffering in life. Thank you for listening.